Welcome to the Bucher and Friends podcast. Here is your host.
Let's send it over to Rick Bucher.
Rick Bucher.
Welcome to another episode of Bucher and Friends, part of the United WeCast Network. I'm Rick Bucher. You can read my stuff on Bleacher Report and on Twitter at Rick Bucher. He is two-time champion DWest. I don't think that ever gets old, being able to use that as part of the title. Former Warrior, retired last summer, announced his retirement. And first of all, just welcome. It's good to see you again. Always enjoyed seeing you around when I'd walk into a locker room. Loved the way you played. And so it's a pleasure to be able to catch up with you again.
Yes, sir, man. It's all good, man. Just enjoying my time, trying to figure things out, but doing well.
So this is the thing for me. I'm wondering, into retirement, first of all, what is the thing that you miss the most now that you are a former NBA player?
I don't know. Maybe just those competitive moments, being in arenas or being in that environment of a big game or something like that. But, that's probably pretty much it. I haven't missed the travel. I've been traveling some, but it's not as intense as the NBA. So that's been cool. I haven't really missed, the game as much as I thought I would, because again, I'm coaching young kids and working with my son now, so I'm in the gym still. So, probably it's just having those intense moments, when things are on the line, games are on the line, stuff like that. But that's probably.
By the way, are you planning to sell your place and you're using this as an opportunity to like do a Zillow thing where you're showing off the pad in case anybody's interested?
I'm just relaxing.
Okay.
I'm just doing my time.
Good deal. By the way, you and I, the last time we ran into each other was in a gym in Oakland where our respective kids were playing. And I know for me, I'm still getting adjusted, whether it's coaching or it's just watching my kids play. It was way easier playing. It was way easier being on the court.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's one of those things where, I just I don't want to put too much pressure on him or the environment, and always keep in mind that they're kids.
Yeah.
But, you want, I will probably want a little bit more from them at times than they're capable right now. So I try to contain myself.
What's it like? Because I had to kind of laugh when I saw you, and I'm just so used to being around you, it doesn't hit me. But then, like, I'm in the gym and I'm with a lot of people, and they're like, "Oh, that's DWest. Oh, that's his kid." So there's two parts to that. One, when you're there and you're just being a dad, how much of it is you're watching your son, but you realize like all eyes in the gym are on you. What's that like?
Yeah, I try to avoid. I try to sneak in, sneak out. Sometimes it's harder in places than others. But, I try to make sure that's his time and that I'm just locked in with him. I'm cheering him on. I'm not there I'm not there to advocate myself or show myself. I'm there to support him. So
yeah.
I try to keep that in focus no matter where I'm going, where he's playing.
Well, it's got to be a little weird for him too, right? Because he's there playing, and you're his dad. He knows what you do, but still, it has to be a strange thing for him to grapple with.
Yeah, it gets weird. Like, the other day he had a game, and the referee came up to me. He's like, "Hey, man, what's up?" And we're having a convo, and I'm watching him. I'm kind of watching him watch me. You know what I mean?
Right.
And then I'm like, I don't want him to. I just don't want him to feel any pressure or feel the need to have to, because everybody knows who he is, right? They want to figure out what he can do and how he looks. So I don't want to have to add any unwanted pressure to him.
Sure. Well, and you may have already answered this, but I wonder, what is the thing that you weren't able to do all these years because you were playing that now you get to do? Well,
I've been to like 5 or 6 different business conferences. I was just in San Jose for one. And so stuff like that, never experienced. I'm enjoying that, being around, business people and technology people, and, not just doing it as an athlete, but doing it as a participant. It's something I've been doing, trying to squeeze in different parts of the season in the past, and trying to crunch, all this stuff into summers. But now I can kind of spread it out, be able to really sink my teeth into some of the information being shared and the relationships, networks being built, so that's one thing. And then, just, travel. I've been able to see a few high school games, watch some young kids play, be a little bit more accessible to young people. So, yeah, those are a couple things right off the bat.
What's the big picture for you? Like, what's the next goal? What's the next ambition?
Right. So, to jump, right now I'm working with this historical basketball league. So the historical basketball league is we're going to be a collegiate pro league. We're going to pay college athletes. We are working on. Yeah. We have a model that was built and constructed by a guy by the name of Andy Swartz, who was instrumental in the O'Bannon case.
Okay.
And he and a guy by the name of Ricky Vellante have put together a plan, to present a model, an opportunity to the market for young athletes to be compensated. It's a multi-billion-dollar industry. There are, college athletes who we know wish they had another option. Having my experience in the NBA, I know how little the NBA wants to truly invest in development. They want finished products.
Yeah.
And I also know that between, the NBA, coaches and guys who work in the development of players at the NBA level, they don't like sometimes the development strategies that go in at the collegiate level, because the players are being developed to play and be productive at the collegiate level and not being prepared for the pro level. So we want to eliminate that gray area. We want to create a league that has ample opportunity for these kids to play under pro conditions. Games will be in the summer. So that way during the fall and winter months, we can address their skill and personal development, expose them to international markets when they would traditionally be in a traditional college setting, and then prepare them in December or in November and December, start preparing them for an international tour of our top guys, take those guys into January to their new year as students. And then beyond that, we would work to prepare them for a combine in the spring, where we would prepare them for the guys who were going to matriculate on into the NBA draft process. They would go, and for other guys, we would continue to develop and prepare for another season. So that's the short version of it. And
wow.
we feel like we have the people in place to create the right kind of landscape for it to be a reality. We're aiming for the summer of 2020 to be our first season. We'll be looking for we'll recruit out of the top 150 high school players. We'll recruit the top 75 to 100 international players, and we'll be looking for the top transfers. We think the market is there. If you think about it, Zion Williamson, for instance, right? Zion had more media, social media, digital hits than the entire Duke men's basketball team the year before he got there. So clearly these kids can create and drive the market themselves before they get to the universities.
Yeah.
And if you look at the universities and the way that the system is designed, I think people deal with it and are in it because there's no other opportunity. There's no other option.
Right.
And so we want to create this other option, give the athletes, give the coaches, give the families a different way to take advantage of that part of their life. And the last thing I'll share is that if you think about it, there are a lot of players that the peak of their basketball career is college. It's the 4 or 5 years that they play in college. And there's this myth that somehow they don't generate profits, they don't generate revenue while they're there is simply just a myth.
Right.
So a guy like Aaron Craft, we all know Aaron Craft, right? Height of Aaron Craft's basketball career was at Ohio State in those 4 years. A guy like him would then be able to come into our league, if you're just thinking about long term, be able to profit and benefit from his likeness, his jersey sales, the things that he excels or did well on the basketball court manifest themselves best in that college game, in that college environment. And he never got to participate in that ecosystem. And so we're going to create the atmosphere for guys like that. And then obviously for guys who have the grand aspiration of playing at the next level. That's what's on the horizon for me.
Wow.
Foreseeable future, yeah.
So would guys still be going to college? Would they still be going to school, and this would just be the place where they would compete, or how would that work?
Yeah, so what we would do is the season would be during the summer. And then as the season came to a close, it would be right around the time schools went back, right? September. Our guys, wherever they're located city-wise, we've got 20 cities listed. We're going to start with 12. wherever they're listed city-wise, within those cities, we have a nonprofit foundation that's going to handle the academic scholarships. And these academic scholarships are going to vary, meaning that we're going to find educational pursuits that fit the athlete. So we're not going to try to fit them into a structure that we know doesn't benefit them or doesn't work to their benefit right now. So during September, obviously October, November, December, we're gonna have guys in a network in that city being educated in a variety of ways. We're going to use vocational, trade, technological, media, social, 2-year universities. We're going to open up the gamut for the players and their families. We have an academic advisory board that's going to work with the student and their family to say, okay, this is what you want to go into. They're going to help them with the application process. And then those scholarships will be fully paid scholarships to the school. So we know universities will be willing to work with us because we're going to be paying full tuition. So
good stuff.
I mean, so that's what we'll be doing. Yeah, that's how we'll handle their academics. And then also during that time, we'll have them on, skill development, personal development programs, and they'll be, getting their basketball, athletic training and development, preparing them for the next level. That's
good stuff. That's really good stuff. Now, I would imagine, have you had any interaction with the league? How is the league feeling about this enterprise?
Well, I've had some conversations with a few people, and what we know is that, like I said, what I know is that the development stage needs to be taken care of, and NBA franchises aren't really interested in developing 18, 19-year-old kids. They want guys that are ready to play and get after it in the NBA.
No, but they are interested in the G League being profitable. and you would be in competition with the G League for the way that they've set it up.
Yeah, but the thing about it is that has always been an option for kids.
Yeah.
Right? It's always been an option. I think the incentive is they bumped up the salary to, a few select kids that may be eligible for that, 125, but I think our platform is a lot wider, a lot broader, and it meets the needs of the kids holistically, puts us in a different demographic because we're looking for kids from, different types of backgrounds.
Sure.
And obviously kids that, only less than 2% of these kids go to the pros anyway.
Right.
So we're talking about a very, very small number of guys.
Yeah, look, I think the spirit of what you're trying to do makes a lot more sense. And as far as the kids are concerned, their overall development, I'm down with all of that. I just know how the NBA operates when they think that somebody's taking money out of their pocket or that they're creating a little bit of, wait a minute, but no, we want the pick of the litter. We don't want you taking anybody that we would value in our system, and that's where they can get a little contentious, even with someone like yourself who represented them extremely well through the course of your career.
Right. Yeah, and I've thought about that. But I see us as, ultimately what I see us becoming is, becoming the premier college stop for kids. And then us having the system that best prepares them for that step into the pros. I think that's what our goal and our objective is. It's also to create a market that is beneficial for the athlete and the enterprise.
Yeah.
I think that's available.
Okay, so one of the things I jumped over, which we generally do here on Bucher and Friends, as an intro, middle names. David Moorer West.
Moorer West, yes.
Explain Moorer to me. Where does that come from?
So Moorer comes from my mom's, it's my mom's maiden name.
Okay.
So it's her family name, and she just, she put her maiden name with us and my dad's last name. So that's sort of where it comes from. Just my mom's maiden name. It was the name that she carried, her family carried. So she passed it on to us.
And is there significance in that name and that family history for you?
The family history gets pretty deep. Our family history goes all the way back to Orangeburg, South Carolina, obviously into plantation life, all the way back through to the Confederacy.
Wow.
Yeah. So the Moorer name is particularly in Orangeburg County. That's where the family was. That's where my grandmother's buried. That's where the family lineage is.
How much were you aware of that growing up, and how much of that? Because you've always been like the fact that you're in on this league, the way you've carried yourself, and in fact, one of the reasons why I wanted to talk to you, and I mentioned it before we started recording, is that I've been following you on Twitter, and you've been rather outspoken, more so than, like, I've known you always to have an opinion, but you were a little more muted when you were in the league. Is that fair to say?
I would say maybe, but not. I wouldn't say muted. I mean,
you would speak if spoken to. Like if someone asked for your opinion, you would certainly weren't shy about giving it and telling people exactly how you felt. But I never got the sense like you volunteered stuff or you were trying to be, I don't want to say progressive, but that you were out on Front Street waving the flag for what I know to be very strong beliefs. Seems since you retired, you've kind of opened up the bag a little bit.
I don't think I've done anything outside of the norm. At least I haven't felt like it. I've just tried to, again, my mind is very clear. I try to, be who
I'm scrolling through your Twitter feed right now, by the way.
Just who I am. I try to make sure that as my awareness is rising, I'm able to bring others into awareness with me.
Yeah.
That's sort of where I've been.
I'm looking at this, and this wasn't a retweet. This was something that you looked up. Britain stole $45 trillion from India over 173 years. And in quotations, of all our studies, history is most qualified to reward our research. Like, you have made it very clear that you're aware of inequalities, shall we say, in our world, as you always have. But I feel like you're making a concerted effort to educate people about, let's call it what it really is, or let's not be blind to a lot of what has transpired. And it feels as if you're putting some effort into that.
I wouldn't say effort. I would say that it's just a matter of seeing where the world is, sort of knowing the course that we're on,
the current climate, you mean?
Yeah. And the course that we're on, the track that we're on as a society, I think that we have to get beyond this idea of trying to sugarcoat or not present the truth. I think people deserve to know certain things. And I know that sometimes I'm like, okay, I read an article, I'm finding information, and I'm trying to get people to understand, like, we've got to set the record straight once and for all so that we can actually start solving real problems. We can actually start addressing, and really making progress, because what's happened is other nations are addressing real problems and really making progress, and we aren't. You know what I'm saying? We're operating like we are. I think that if you think about the transition from President Obama to Trump, right? We think we're making progress, we think we're there, and then it's like, no, we're not. Other nations, and I talk to my young basketball kids about this. I say, look, other nations are playing your sport, and I say our sport. I mean, basketball is our sport. They're playing your sport, and they are doing it sooner, and they're doing it with a different purpose. And so I'm not surprised at the way that Doncic looked. Luka Doncic.
Yeah.
I'm not surprised he's not going to be the last, right? We saw a glimpse of it with Porzingis. I mean, I'm always going to be a fan of his because he embraced New York. He said, no, I want that. I want to go. I want that challenge. And so there's a difference that the rest of the world is recognizing. Like, a problem exists because, folks, the truth is laid to bear. People can now solve those problems. People can now present solutions to those issues. And it manifests itself in sports with guys coming over being more pro-ready than a lot of our guys here.
So to what do you credit when you say you're not surprised by anything Luka has done? Is it because he was in a pro setting? Is it because of where he came from? What is it that convinced you that he was going to be the real deal?
There's no illusion. He didn't grow up with this illusion that, where his passion lied, he should not focus and dedicate his time. And that's the main issue that we have here, is that We have young people who are passionate about things and they want to focus on those things, but we've got process and procedure that says you have to go through these steps to get there. And these processes and procedures were put in place 150 years ago. They were put in place when things weren't equitable. Nobody had a fair shot then. So how are we operating by the same rule?
So do you mean in terms of having to go through the whole collegiate process in order to be what you want to be or aspire to a certain craft?
All of it. And the idea is that you have a guy who I remember the first time I saw LeBron James. He had just finished his 9th grade year in high school, and everybody knew it. But now imagine he has to go through 3 more years of high school basketball. Yeah. This whole idea that he's got to go and learn this and learn. And I'm not saying he shouldn't address, his educational pursuit to put the educate. Remember the fuss that they were making about him and his Hummer, right? Like his education should be a front of all of this, and he don't worry about the basketball. I mean, Doncic never had to go through that, right? They don't deal with that, and it's not a neglect.
They don't pretend, because here's the reality: the education isn't being provided in a real way anyway. So it's really just a disguise that we're not going to give you the money because we need you to be focused on other things, right? We'll take care of the money. You just go and get an education, but you know what? Get an education after you play for us. I agree with all of that. Going back, so I played soccer in college, and it was an understood thing that guys would come in to college and they were probably at their best their freshman year, because if you stayed for 3 or 4 years, you didn't play as much as you did when you played club. You didn't play against the same competition. You were a worse player by the time you got out than you came in, and it was the same deal. Like there was no vehicle for any of these guys, the real talents, to be able to generate any revenue or take full advantage of who they were at that relatively young age.
Right. And then now so we're starting to see these things manifest themselves in real time, because we've got athletes, we've got students who aren't athletes who are locked up in processes, right? Like how many kids are now going to college, graduating, and there's no opportunity. Yeah, they've literally gone to school, and what they have is debt. Yeah, right? They don't have some good job waiting for them. They don't have some massive corporation grabbing them in. The majority of the kids are like, I went through all of that, and all I've got is this.
Yeah. I don't know if you saw this. The increase in the average salary of a college football coach versus the average starting salary for a kid coming out of college. Over the last 20 years, it's increased. That entry-level job you get coming out of college has increased about 7%. The average college football coach's salary has over that time increased like 400, 500%. It's gone from like 400,000 to an average of 2.6 million. And to me, that's exactly like things are tilting in the absolute wrong direction. And in a big scale, not to make this a political podcast, but that's the way everything has geared. Like the top has gained more and the bottom has overall gained less.
Right, absolutely. And the issue for people to start to engage and to deal with that problem, present solutions that make sense, you've got to have the truth. Like people have to have the reality. We can't try to disguise it or hide it anymore. It's, again, I've been able to experience, some pretty high level folks, in the last couple months, because people are working toward, sort of a revamp of the technological world, right? Okay. Taking back control over certain parts of our lives, like our data. And, the mindset amongst these people who are CEOs and that we have to center things around people now.
So they're advocates for what you're talking about. They believe that we have to raise the bottom and take care of people. That's encouraging to hear.
And we've got to center the future around people and the needs of people, right? And that's what technology should be used for. Yeah. Like we shouldn't be using it to take advantage. We should be using it to empower, to improve, And that's sort of what I've learned literally in the last few months.
Did you expect to find that? Like, what did you expect when you went in?
A little bit of both, but it's just a matter. So I got introduced to some of these people via conservationists.
And can you give us kind of an idea of who, like, I don't know if you want to give specifics, you want to give names, but at least give us an idea of who it is that you're meeting with.
I mean, like the guys from Salesforce, guys I'm getting familiar with.
Okay.
A lot of renewable energy people who are in the environmental movement, people who are working toward cutting through the red tape and bringing people solutions. Like, I mean, there are real people out here, and they're pushing back a bit against sort of the status quo in terms of we've got to find ways and find things that are more equitable, more fair. We've got to introduce these things to the market, and we can't ask permission to do it. And we just have to do it. Yeah. And whether we have a basketball league or somebody has a way to simplify how we go to the DMV, then it's time for us to start introducing some of these things, because I mean, there are parts of our lives, simple things in our lives that are still too complicated, and we should allow technology to help facilitate changes. And at the same time, begin to prepare young people for a future that the rest of the world is embracing. That's the other thing. We have to understand we can't continue to back ourselves. And I say we because we as in people who live in this country. We live in the U.S., right? Regardless of where your cultural affiliation may be, if you're a citizen in this country, then you're the we. Yeah. So in taxes, we're living here, our kids are going to school. We've got to start changing and shifting because, like I said, if you literally got populations of people who are now solving problems that we thought were impossible. When we went to Shenzhen, China last year, it's the same age as I am. I'm 38 years old. It's 38 now. 1980, I think it was September 1st, 1980, Shenzhen was farmland. And it's literally like New York City right now. 38 years.
Wow.
It's problem. This is a real world problem. Let's have a real world solution to it. And it's working. And we have to be a part of this change. We've got to start presenting these models, particularly in the market, because if we don't in the market, this is the other thing. If we don't in the market, then we'll continue to allow people to take advantage like they do in college athletics. And you've got to be able to create systems in the market that are equitable and give people an opportunity to share in it.
I don't know if you know this. Kyle Anderson, you mentioned Shenzhen. He has relatives there. Like
really?
Yes, his mom did. He was a guest on the podcast, and we got into it. His mom did research, and he went over there, and they were setting off firecrackers at every house that he went to. But he has family there. Yes, that he got an opportunity to meet and kind of opened up his whole. Yeah, he's I'm trying to think. Jamaican. There's if I'm not mistaken, a Chinese Jamaican community, and and they kind of have a line, a family bloodline that goes back there, and he discovered it. So we were just talking about that. He went over there with his mom and met all these relatives, and it was wild. All right, so most people will see this podcast advertised, and they're thinking, okay, cool, it's a basketball podcast, and I don't know how much we've actually spent on that. So in order to give them a little bit of sugar here, you're still spending some time in the Bay Area. How much are you still following the Warriors in particular and the league in general?
I'm pretty active. I'm following them. I'm texting with Dre. I saw them in Cleveland. I was at a tech conference in Cleveland, and they were playing the night after. So I went over in a little bit. Everything's in terms of the league, I like the energy that's going around the league. I think Giannis is really having a hell of a year. I'm a fan of his. I've started watching Dallas because of Doncic.
Really? What's your interest? What's your interest in Doncic? Why does he appeal to you?
I just like him. I think he's he's young, man, but that dude he's taking shots at the end of the game. He's already figured out, how to really get it going, like mid-quarter, bear down on people at mid 3 minutes of an NBA quarter. So it's like, I like him. I think he's already ahead of the game because you can tell he's been a pro. Like it's not new to him. I mean, the arenas are new, fan base is new, but he's not new to this, and I like that. You know, he's coming in prepared, ready to go.
So your name came up again when the whole KD Draymond thing went down, and everybody went, "Oh, remember what DWest said at the end of last year about things that the team had to get through," and people immediately connected that statement to what's transpired this season. So to clarify things, and look, I mean, we've seen it in San Antonio. No matter how good the franchise is, no matter how together the guys are, you're people living together for 7 months. I think I have a pretty peaceful home. I've tried to cultivate a family atmosphere with my family, a supportive one. Nonetheless, we still get into it now and then. So I'm just curious, first of all, is that like what we saw, kind of this back and forth? Was there some of that last year that had to be navigated that just wasn't public?
No. Again, we never had anything like that. It wouldn't get to that point. You know, I've said it before, what I was talking about was, you know, this general sense that just because of the collection of talent that it was easy. Mm-hmm. That was my general sense of, like, we were hearing that over and over and over again. I'm like, man, no, we had all of the issues and the things that come up in a season came up. You know, they always come up. That's what the NBA is. You're not going to have an environment that intense, that high pressure, those stakes that high, and not have, you know, contentious moments. But it's sort of how things were handled, you know, particularly just the way, the culture that we had. We didn't allow the things to grow and spill over. Yeah.
It is hard to sustain that, though, because the expectations become so great and the pressure is there. And really, I always feel like the redeeming value of what you're doing lessens. Everybody expects it. So when you win, yeah, you won, but did you win like big enough, or did you win in the right way? And that's what kind of wears down a team, I think, psychologically, when you have, like, say, a Boston or a Toronto or other teams that, man, they're hungry. They're hungry to have a little bit of piece of what you've had. That is the greatest challenge. So when you look at this team trying to three-peat this year, what do you think is going to be the biggest challenge for them?
Again, I think it's going to be the fatigue, the mental fatigue, you know, getting everybody's best shot. That wears you down as well. You know, obviously health and being able to be as healthy as possible late in the season is probably the biggest challenge. It's all based on health. And obviously, if they're healthy, if the team's mentally where they should be, they can make another run at it. But, you know, it's going to be a journey. And everyone knows that. I think, you know, every year, particularly when you're dealing with high caliber teams, every year is a grind, and it gets tougher and tougher and tougher. And this year's not going to be, and it hasn't been any different. Again, but you know, they've got the gear, they've got that switch that they can hit.
Before I let you go, I just wonder, one, it's not like you were playing heavy minutes, but can you kind of describe what it is when you're playing longer and harder than anybody else year after year, and then you got to dial it up the next year and do it all over again? That, I don't know whether it's a more mental toll or a physical toll, but, like, did you feel it physically? There was a difference, that it took something out of you being part of those deep runs consecutively?
Yeah. You know, I think you deal with it. You know, when I was in Indy, we went through that, you know, with those, you know, we basically play until June 1st, and then, you know, every year, and then having to come back, and in our case, being disappointed by losing to the Heat and having to say, okay, you know, we did that 3 straight years, you know, let's revamp, gear up, and take another crack at these guys again. Mm-hmm. That does wear on. I mean, it does. Now, the difference with the Warriors is getting over the hump. When you get over the hump, there's a little bit more euphoria. It feels, you know, you feel that vindication, that validation, and then preparing is not as hard because you won. I would say that it's probably harder to come out of it having lost. You know, we lost back-to-back, and we lost in this conference semifinals to them, and then back-to-back in the conference finals. Both physical series. Those were harder for me to come back from.
Yeah, I can see that. Is there anything you left undone? As you look back, is there anything you wished you had done or you wished you had experienced?
Probably being a little bit more selfish maybe because I felt like I could have probably been an all-star a couple more years, but I didn't have the selfish gear to get there. Like, knowing that. And I mean, the NBA, when you're not a guaranteed all-star, media guys, I remember in Indy, David Brenner was like, if you just go nuts this next couple weeks, you'll probably get in. But in my mind, I'm thinking go nuts is like sacrifice a game or two to get 30, 35.
Right.
And I probably felt like maybe what that would have felt like or what that would have looked like to really go for it and done it.
Interesting.
My last year in New Orleans was the same way with Monty. I remember Monty and I had he looked at me, he was like, you can get it if you go for it these next 3 weeks. And I'm like, I'd rather us just win, and you know what I'm saying?
So I get that, but what I'm fascinated by is that you think about that. You're like, God, maybe I should have gone for it, when the fact that you didn't was about all the right things.
Because obviously, getting to that level and being amongst those guys, that always all right. But I know that there's probably a couple seasons there where I just literally I'm thinking it through. The writing is right there. It's like, look, if you average 25 over the next 2 weeks, you'll probably get the nod. And I was like, I couldn't find that selfish gear to get.
Yeah. So do you think you'd be regarded different if you had? What's the regret behind that? Because you were an all-star. You proved you were an all-star. And you weren't one of those one-time, just happened to all the stars aligned. Even in this case, proof is you were right there a number of times. You were a champion. You conducted yourself in a way over the course of a career where you walk away with, held in high esteem. I mean, all of that. So what is the,
it's the hooper. It's like the ball, the hooper in me.
Okay.
You know what I mean? I remember the year I made maybe the first All-Star game, CP was like, yo, D, you got it. And it was like, wham. And then I think literally it was like, yo, and he was sort of doing it. We were working it. We were winning. We had figured out the formula. Mm-hmm. And, it was like B. Scott telling me, yo, man, you got to shoot the ball 10 times in the first quarter. I'm like, what? He's like, that's the selfishness I'm talking about, right? He had to, B. Scott had to coach me into that. You gotta do this.
Right.
And it got me there. So that as a ball player, you know what I'm saying? The guy on the court in the park, I'm like, maybe I should have gone for it a couple more times.
Do you still get shots up? Okay. You still love
the game. Yeah, being in the gym. Yeah. Absolutely. Okay. Absolutely.
All right. You don't strike me as a type that's going to get it's going to put on a couple LBs and go because I'm actually plotting on a 35 and older league right now to go. You're busy, dude. How many leagues are you going to start? 35 and over?
I want to play in one. That's what I'm saying. I'm plotting to play in one.
Okay. All right. We'll certainly look forward to that. David, always a pleasure. Appreciate the time. Wish you the best. Please let us know how we can support what you have going, because I cover the NBA. I'm not part of the NBA, so I'm all for what you're trying to get done.
Right. I appreciate that, man.
All right. That does it for another edition of Bucher and Friends, part of the United WeCast network. Again, you can follow me on Twitter at Rick Bucher. You can see my stuff on Bleacher Report. The next podcast, I'll be joined by Ryan Hollins, as I usually am on Thursdays. I will be doing the show from Chicago after getting a firsthand look at the Bulls and the sneaky good might be too much, but I'll give you an idea of who the keepers are on that roster. We'll also get into that up and down Lakers team. All that and more with Ryan in our next podcast. Thanks for listening.